Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Social Justice Forum. My name is Kathleen Janis, and I serve as the liaison to St. David's Child Welfare Team at the Harman Center located here at Westminster. Each year, we build these forums around a theme, and this year our theme is moving from understanding to transformation, effecting change together, guided by God. Through the forums, we explore how we can be better partners for positive transformation in our community. We examine norms and consider what capabilities we need to build. Today, we are very pleased to welcome members of the St. David's leadership team here at Westminster. We will hear about the importance of advocacy and how you and I can play a role in it. We will also hear about the journey of one of our families working with the Harman Center. We welcome back Julie Sjordal, who has held many roles at St. David's and today is the Chief Executive Officer. We also welcome Hannah Krueger, Program Supervisor in the Autism Day Treatment Program, who will share her experience working with children with autism spectrum disorder. And Kaitlyn Lake, mental health professional with the Family Place, who will share her work helping children and families to process and move through some of the most challenging experiences. But before we get started, just a couple items. If you are here in the Meisel room and you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll bring you a microphone. And with that microphone, not only can people in the room hear you, but the people on the live stream can hear you, which they won't hear you if you're not on a microphone. For those on the live stream, please submit your comment or your question in the live stream chat. We are monitoring those, and we will make sure your question gets asked. As part of our ongoing effort to promote respectful conversations around concerns in our community, the Social Justice Team has established guidelines for the Social Justice Forums. You can see some of this on the screen, and I encourage you to read this. And please read this as well. Equity of voices, encourage curiosity, concise questions, we have limited time, generous listening, listen from the heart with compassion, and honoring the image of God. Before we get started, please join me in a short prayer. Holy God, God of justice, great Creator, breathe into us a spirit of curiosity and humility. Help us to engage with mindfulness. Guide our speech. Lead us to self-awareness so that in all we do, we honor the divine in all people. Amen. So now please welcome Julie, Hannah, and Kaitlyn. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Hi there. Good to see you all. What an honor to be with you, both all of you in the room and those of you on live stream. So my role today, I'm going to push through the slides. Our goal is to share with you the vision, impact, and our call to advocacy in 2024. And what that's going to look like is just kind of a general overview, just making sure that everybody in the room and online knows who St. David's Center is. So for some of you, for many of you in the room, that will be a repeat, but hopefully it just brings back to life what the work is of this good organization you've chosen to partner with. And then just a little bit more about the vision and impact of the work we've done here in partnership with Westminster, celebrating our work through a little bit of the data, and probably most importantly, thank you. Should I do this instead? Okay. Probably most importantly is a story for the work to come to life. That's what it is about. It's the stories of the people who are touched by the brilliant work of our staff. And then just a little bit of context for growth, our strategic vision, and a call to advocacy. So that's our our goal for our time with you, and I'm going to jump right in. So just a reminder who St. David's Center is. So our mission is to build relationships that nurture the development of every child and family. And we do that through our services in 4 core areas. Early childhood education. St. David's Center is a 60-year-old organization, and we've been an early childhood educator for all of those 60 years. Where we've really grown, you can see that about 200 children and families receive service, that early education set of services from St. David's. Where we've really grown is through our early intervention and treatment. 3,600 of the 4,300 clients we serve receive some sort of early intervention or treatment from St. David's Center staff. And then community-based disability services. We have this gift of being able to stay alongside families through in-home work and group therapeutic recreation for adolescents and adults with disabilities. So our staff, as the children we serve age into adolescence, if they have an enduring special need, we are able to stay alongside them through this one-on-one in-home work. And then we've grown in the last few years in this area of parent and professional training and consultation with a recognition that there is so much need in the community. And we have a set of services and an approach that many have leaned on St. David's Center for. So have developed some intentional consultation services to other providers in the community. And all of this good work aimed at a vision that will have a healthy and vibrant community. And our place in that is developmental partners for the children and families we work with. So a little bit more about our early intervention and treatment programs. So you see this continuum that this, so many of our services are defined by who the funding source is, and it's so easy to stay in these silos of funding sources or county contracts or government grants, and we work against that by thinking about our set of services as a continuum. Families come to St. David's Center for St. David's Center work, not for one specific defined program, and so we came up with this visual to help the community understand what early intervention and treatment looks like. And it's based on, this continuum is based on intensity and severity of symptoms and intensity of interventions. So the preventative intervention is on the far left side, and deeper end, intensive in-home and center-based treatment on the right. And so, a family might call us, call our intake line and say, I'm just struggling. My child's been kicked out of childcare. I don't know what the behavior means. I'm trying to figure out what to do. Can you help me? And so we've invested in some parent coaching and support so that parents can join an insights group or have some telehealth with a mental health therapist that will just help them explore and reflect on what might be going on for their child and family. And then as we come to understand children and families, and as we understand that a diagnosis is necessary, or if their success is so hampered by whatever developmental need or behavioral need is in their life, our intensity of intervention aligns with that. So it's, anywhere from parent-child home visiting to pediatric and mental health therapies, case management, community-based mental health, and then the deepest end is 5-day-a-week treatment. And Hannah and Kaitlyn will tell you a little bit more about what that looks like in the life of a child who is really struggling to be successful in other settings. So another way to look at the organization is through some of these data points that tell you what the reach of the organization. So by the numbers, 4,300 clients served last year by St. David's Center's staff, 520 staff members on our team, from paraprofessionals all the way to doctoral level staff, individual, family, and group therapy and services. We have 2 clinic locations, certainly here at Westminster and our Minnetonka-based clinic. We have about 60,000 square feet and 10 acres at our clinic and early education center in Minnetonka. And about 13,000 square feet here. And then our staff provides services in 30 different co-located partner sites. So we have two relationships with Osseo and Hopkins schools where our community-based mental health staff are co-located right on site. We do some child care consultation, and then we're in hundreds of family homes throughout the metro community. braided funding model, and I'll say a little bit more about that. So St. David's Center's annual budget is $30 million as of this fiscal year, and about 58% of our revenue is government revenue. A lot of that is Medicaid, so that tells you a lot about our population. So about of that 58%, 50% of it is Medicaid. So it's families for whom poverty is in their lives, and they lean on our Medicaid system for health care, and it's families who have children with disabilities who can use Medicaid as a funding source for services. And then some of that's government grants. We've seen an increase in the last few years in government grants, just the government really trying to come alongside providers in creative solutions. 22% is insurance revenue, a little bit of private pay for both co-pays and our child care services. And then 10%, that's about $2.5 million, 10% is between 8 and 10% is charitable revenue. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. It's interesting to be a nonprofit who's relied on charitable revenue our whole lives, and to see now some mental health providers who are for-profit agencies going out of business because they can't rely on charitable revenue. It has become so critical to have community partners to be able to stay in this work. And then just a little bit of other miscellaneous revenue that's part of our equation. So, taking a turn, what's our history and impact of our partnership with Westminster? It's been such a beautiful partnership, and I want to tell you just a little bit about how we entered into it and what we've accomplished as a result. So 2016 was the year that our partnership launched, and it's interesting. It was a year where we had just finished a great big capital campaign and a full renovation and expansion of our Minnetonka location, and when we got the opportunity, when we were invited to submit a proposal about what we wanted to do if given this opportunity in Westminster, we had to take a deep breath, like, should we, after just finishing a capital campaign and a pretty significant growth, and decided it was just too beautiful of an opportunity to have a downtown location and really partner with a faith community that's so deeply respected. And so we submitted a proposal for a center, and were offered the opportunity. So this just shows you that before we started, we had just renovated and expanded our Minnetonka campus. And literally in July of 2016, when we submitted our proposal to Westminster, we did a grand opening of our Minnetonka location. So it was literally on the heels. It was a big gulp and saying, yes, we can, and a board that just said, this is right, this is what we should do. So when we were given the opportunity, we decided that we wanted to use the data that we knew that was driving us to growth, use this data to really guide what we proposed here at Westminster. And if there's a lot of data points here, but what I want to highlight out of these data points are a few things. So you'll see this first data point: early adversity leads to the 10 most common causes of death. Child exposure to abuse and family dysfunction equals a risk for major health and mental health services. And more than 200 children ages 0 to 3 are in out-of-home placement. So those were the data points that we pulled together in 2016 that really drove our vision for what we wanted to do here. And so what does all that say to us? That says that early adversity and exposure to toxic stress during that critical time of brain development, it causes long-term bad outcomes. When children are, and you think about what happens when you are in a fight or flight situation, when you're scared. As an adult, you can feel your system go into high alert. Your adrenaline kicks in, you go into high alert. And think about being a little human, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, who goes into that kind of high alert, that kind of adrenaline push on an ongoing basis because your home is scary, or because you're nobody's home when you need help, or when you cry, there's no response. So that the impact of neglect and violence in the home, drug use, scary situation for children when their brain is most critically developing, when their brain is most malleable. They are in this ongoing or in and out of fight or flight as a result of their circumstance. So those statistics lead to bad outcomes for kids unless we intervene. And so as the more we learn about that in our field, about the impact of brain development and what a brain looks like that is in this kind of constant state of stress, the more we learn about that, the more we're driven as an organization to make early intervention accessible. So you think about if you look at these statistics, and I'm going to put a pyramid in front of you that says a little bit more about this. This pyramid is really well known in our field. It's the ACE pyramid, adverse childhood experiences. If you hear the ACE referred to, that's what we're talking about. Adverse childhood experiences. If you have that on an ongoing basis as a child, you're going to have disrupted neurodevelopment because your brain is in constant fight or flight. So our brains as children, as human race, in those first 5 years, we are dependent on a caregiving relationship that grounds us. Babies need that caregiving relationship. 1-year-olds need that caregiving relationship. 2-year-olds, though they're pushing against it, come back and check in. And when that caregiving relationship doesn't guide you and ground you, that disrupts neurodevelopment. And then disrupted neurodevelopment leads to social, emotional, and cognitive impairment. That leads to adoption of health risk behaviors. And you think about what does it look like when we're in fight or flight, we do something to protect ourselves. So children in that fight or flight are doing something to protect themselves, and as a result, their brain development gets disrupted, and then they develop maladaptive behaviors. So our behavior is set out to protect us. So if you're in fight or flight and you have to get big to protect yourself, then that becomes your pattern of behavior. And then those kids end up showing up in childcare with big behaviors, scary behaviors, because they've been scared. And so this is a pretty simple, if you think about this pyramid, it's a pretty simple equation to what little humans do to protect themselves when they're in a fearful situation, or when they're in a situation where their neurosystem makes the world confusing. So, we think about kids in trauma, and I heard a colleague of ours several years ago, Dr. Ann Garrity, talk about autism as a form of trauma in some ways too, because their neurosystem, they're not taking in the world through their senses in the same way we do. It's confusing. And so they are in their own sort of experience of trauma. And all of that leads to early death. So we want to, when maladaptive behaviors, just one more word about maladaptive behaviors really are adaptive to help protect you, but then they become, over time, ways that don't protect us. They become then health concerns. So we're in this work it's certainly about children and families, but it's about the health of our community. And so just wanted to ground you in that as a starting place for our conversation, and why this became such a critical focus of the intervention we do here. So all that's to say, when we were given the opportunity with Westminster Church, we decided with this smaller site that we wanted to specifically focus our site and what we named the Harman Center in honor of our colleague Scott Harman, who is an infant mental health specialist and clinician and leader across Minnesota. He died that year, and so we were able to use this opportunity to name this work in his honor. So the Harman Center for Child and Family Wellbeing was going to change. Our goal was to have this site change the trajectories of children and families who have faced adversity and trauma, and who are in and out of home placement, and who need services to be within their reach. So a pretty simple, straightforward vision, and just beautiful work has happened as a result. So our goals for this site are to strengthen parent-child relationships that are the foundation for foundational building block for long-term positive outcomes, and improve outcomes for children who have faced trauma and need as strong of a start as possible, and partner with families and communities to support healing, health, and well-being. And so what's that looked like through these 5 years? So we opened in 2018, had the opportunity in 2016, did the build together, opened in 2018, and paused and pivoted in March of 2020. So, we had a couple of years, and then COVID hit us all. And as so much of the world shut down, our staff showed up on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis when we were all so afraid. So quickly, families said to us, telehealth is great for the moment, but it doesn't work for small children. We need you. And so by May of 2020, we were providing in-person services and provided that throughout COVID, in and out of quarantines and in and out of, the disease changing and the information changing, and our staff showed up for children and families. It was really beautiful to be part of and witness. And we continued to deepen our relationships at the major colleges and universities to grow and shape the mental health workforce. So so much of our work at St. David's Center is built on a mental health model. About 150 of our 500 staff are mental health staff. And we've faced a mental health crisis in the last few years. So it's been critical that we really are building the workforce through relationships with colleges and universities. We celebrated our 5-year mark in 2023, and we've deepened our partnership with the YWCA across the street, and so that we can ensure access to early intervention to kids at their center, and that we can share services and resources. So remarkable results since we've started. Over 500 children have been served for a minimum of 90 days, 389 through mental health services, and 191 through pediatric therapies. And of those children served, 77% achieved improved mental health outcomes, and 91% achieved improved developmental outcomes. So those results are fabulous. Those children's lives have been changed. And we still have our 2023 results to add to this, so stay tuned for that data to come out soon. So now I'd like to turn the mic over to Kaitlyn, who's going to start sharing with you the story of one child that's been through our programs, and she and Hannah will take you through that story.
Thanks, Julie. I really appreciate you sharing so much of that history and background on Harman Center here. My name's Kaitlyn, and I am a mental health professional here at St. David's Center. I specifically work within our Family Place Day Treatment Program. We serve children ages 3 to 6 who have experiences of disrupted attachments and past trauma experiences. Specifically, I'm here today to talk about a story of a child who was within our program for a period of the time, and then was able to receive additional services throughout Harman Center. Specifically, when the child entered our care or was seeking additional support, he was having a really challenging time across environments. He was 6 years old, was really struggling within the school environment, home environment, and across relationships. Specifically, he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and presented some behaviors and symptoms associated with PTSD, and was given other trauma and stressor disorder. Some of his past experiences had an impact on the way that he was presenting his behaviors. That included a history of family violence, parent separation, and social isolation due to COVID-19 pandemic. Some of the presenting concerns that were really primary included significant hypervigilance, really large dysregulation and elevation that included verbal and physical aggression, and a really impaired parent and child relationship. While I said that he was struggling significantly across settings. The child's mother was really doing what she could to advocate for his needs and came to us in seek of support. Unfortunately, the child's mother shared that school programs weren't successful and that even in seeking additional mental health resources elsewhere, they weren't able to do so. And so she was kind of felt like she was out of options. Knowing all of that, and then knowing that we typically serve children 3 to 6, the child is just turning 6, and also had presented with a large physical stature, and in addition, had really significant verbal aggression and physical aggression. We wanted to make a really informed decision about having him enter our program and what could we do best to support the child and family. In knowing that there was a history of past family violence, we wanted to intentionally empower mom to be engaged in the decision-making process of him joining our program. We did this by having both child and mom tour our site initially. And the plan was to have them tour, become acquainted, and then together we're gonna pair as a team to decide what's gonna be most supportive and what's the plan for services moving forward. What actually happened is parent and child enter our waiting room, they're in our lobby, and at this point in time, the child was extremely dysregulated, was verbally aggressive, physically aggressive to staff, to property, to mom. And at that point in time, we knew we needed to intervene, broader picture with services, but also intervene in that moment. Because of mom's past trauma experiences as well, she was having her own reaction or response to the child's behaviors. And in that moment, when the child was presenting really large, big behaviors, she, instead of just being in fight or flight, actually was in freeze and wasn't able to respond to her child and support his regulation. And so at that point, we knew, wow, this child and family really need support. We are able to support them, and we're gonna need to be really flexible. And so I'm really proud to work with a team of people here at Harman Center who are willing to be flexible and adaptable in meeting the needs of children and family. What happened so we made the plan to have the child enter our mental health day treatment program for about 60 days and have that be kind of a trial period. So then after that, we could pause and assess what's going to be most clinically and ethically appropriate for a child and family because of the high needs. So within our day treatment program, the child family place, we have 2 hours of group skills, 1 hour of group psychotherapy per day, and it's going to be 5 days per week. Additionally, within our program, we have family skills sessions and family psychotherapy sessions. That is what typically we have within our program. Specifically for this child, we were really intentional about our intervention in knowing the child's history, the family's history, and the presenting concerns. And so we are really focusing, if we're thinking of hierarchy of needs, we are really within the section of safety and security and trying to provide that stabilization. And so immediately we're creating a safety plan for both parent and child within the home environment, but then also even on site, because the child was presenting really large behavior and also was physically larger than a lot of the peers within the program. We were really intentional about providing one-on-one support for that child within our setting, and having really clear and concise boundaries with both parent and child within family psychotherapy sessions, skill sessions, while also within our day treatment program, because we wanted to support the development of healthy relational boundaries that weren't necessarily supported before. We also really wanted to focus on supporting the child's regulation because of when the traumas, specifically for the child and family, there was a history of family violence where the child's father engaged in physical aggression towards mom while the child was in utero, and then throughout early childhood as well. And so in thinking about when these trauma experiences occurred, we wanted to go back to the stages of development in which they did occur and support him through that lens. And so because we know that regulation is learned within the context of relationships, we wanted to support his development of regulation within the context of our safe relationship with him. So by doing so, we there's an example where at one point in time he's running out of the classroom, he's actually trying to leave the building as a whole, and he's engaging in verbal aggression, physical aggression, and it is really pretty destructive and elevated. My response was to intervene with narration, coming within close proximity, redirection, and also containment. Within the home previously, the child had to align with the aggressor as a form of adaptation that now was maladaptive, as Julie was earlier saying. And so he was moving through the world and applying that understanding of relationships to relationships across settings and across relationships. And so in intervening, I was helping support orientation to time, person, place. I'm saying, hey, my name's Kaitlyn. I'm here with you. You're at St. David's Center. I'm providing that containment because he hasn't necessarily received that in the past, and that his behaviors have been too big for parents and teachers and staff previously, and was able to regulate my own body so then he could engage in regulation with me as well. And then so I'm focusing on like the deep breathing, regulating myself, and then was able to have the child actually accept some variation of rocking. With his size, his head was about to up to my chin, and we're standing here together, and we're actually rocking back and forth, and we are taking deep breaths, and he's facing out intentionally because of his past experiences. I wanted him to still be able to see his surroundings, and if he were to face me, it would have been too intimate for him. It wouldn't have felt safe necessarily, and so trying to modify it while still being able to support his regulation through that nurturance as well. And so in that example, we were able to regulate, rejoin the group, participate in activities, and yeah, I think of that moment very fondly. So we have 60 days of our day treatment program, and we really want to pause and reflect on what's been really supportive for the child and what are some of the challenges we're facing and how can we adapt further. Specifically, child was really successful when it was one-on-one. If we were able to remove him from the group, then he was far more regulated. When engaging with peers or even within close proximity of peers, it was really overwhelming, and he had a difficult time regulating, even with staff support at that time. Another thing that went really well is I like to think that because we were able to provide clear and consistent boundaries, that the child then learned that his big wasn't too big and that people can help. And that now as he's moving through the world, he's able to know what it feels like to be within proximity of a safe adult that can protect him. Additionally, I like to think that there was progress seen within the family. In the family work, because of the past family violence, we were really intentional about having the psychotherapy sessions with mom and dad separate, in that they're very much focused on their individual relationship with their child, in that because they were separated and divorced and no longer needing to necessarily repair that relationship, and because it was so volatile, that we kept it separate to then have it be really tailored to what does the child need, and to really focus on their kid. And yeah, I think that there was a shared understanding throughout that experience as well. Some of the challenges we experienced or observed was that the child did become really overwhelmed around peer elevation, it activated him. And then he demonstrated some really pretty big avoidance behaviors as well, and specifically even would fall asleep. And then we had to really think ethically, like what's our next approach, okay? So we're gonna provide narration even when he's asleep. I'm gonna guess that even though he was asleep, he was still relatively present and still hearing us because he was so incredibly hypervigilant. And so I think he was still taking in his surroundings at that time. But we also still needed to make a plan because he was within our care to be a part of a group of 7 children with similar experiences and to work on social, emotional, and regulatory skills. And so if he wasn't necessarily participating in the activities, then it was difficult to do so. And then we were really intentional about having him paired with a staff. So his ratio is 1-to-1. Family Place as a program isn't necessarily designed to have 1-to-1 ratio. Right now we have about 7 children in our program or in a group at a time. And then sometimes we have about 4 to 7 staff, or including interns. And it was challenging to sustain the 1-to-1 for a long period of time. Typically, children are within our care for about 12 to 18 months. And so it was really all hands on deck in trying to support the child and the family at this time. And so then we had to pause and think and be really intentional about what's going to be most clinically supportive for this child and family. And since we know that he was really successful within a 1-to-1 relationship, and within a smaller setting, we wanted to be creative and to find a new way to adapt and be flexible in still offering this family and child services in a way that is accessible to them and also us. And so I, again, am incredibly proud to work here at Harman Center and be able to say yes to a lot of these more challenging cases, even when there's a need to be a little bit more flexible and adaptable. So here, Hannah's going to share more on what happened next to further support this child.
Thank you, Kaitlyn. So yes, I'm Hannah, and I work in the autism day treatment. So after Kaitlyn's program, kind of figured out that he needed more one-on-one support. We started a classroom here at the Harman Center about 1.5 years ago, and we call it our transition room. So transitioning kiddos into St. David's services, out of St. David's services, kind of a smaller setting to kind of really figure out what is best for the kiddos. Most of our kiddos in this classroom have dual diagnoses, meaning that they have autism and another diagnosis. So like Kaitlyn said, this little boy had autism, trauma, and anxiety. So seemed like a good fit for him, and it's there's typically only 3 or 4 kiddos in the room, so definitely less than the 7. So since it was so helpful for him to have more one-on-one, a smaller class size, we decided that we're gonna say yes to him, so see how he does in our program. First day was I talked to some staff to get some more background information on this kiddo on Friday, and one of them said it was the hardest entrance first day for a kiddo they have ever seen at St. David's or in any other sites that they've worked at. It took 5 staff and dad and almost an hour to get this kiddo into the building. So anxious, so nervous, thought he was going back to the setting of 7 kiddos where he was not being super successful in. So very anxious at first. He was in our program from July until November, and during that time, he had to ride in a wagon into the building and out of the building probably until sometime in October, so it took a lot to get him in every day. At first, actually, our program too is only 3 days a week, so also another thing that was really successful for him, the 5 days was just too much with all those kiddos, so 3 days, at first couple weeks, sleeping a lot, like Kaitlyn was saying. It was kind of his coping strategy. He would just shut down, couldn't wake him up. Whole day he was sleeping in his wagon. He would bring a pillow and a blanket from home, make his own little bed in there and sleep in there. Did not want to be in our classroom, did not want to do anything anyone suggested, was just waiting to go home, just did not want to be with us. No interest in friends. Oh, did I push something? No interest in friends at all. Do I need to go forward? Oh, nope, back 2 times. Okay. And just unable to communicate what he needed at all. So slowly our staff continued to do what was successful for him in the Family Place program, narrating a lot, allowing him to leave the room when he was awake. He always wanted to find all of the exits in the building. We allowed him to walk around just to get kind of that safety and that trust with us. We would pull his wagon into the classroom when he did seem regulated and was awake, just so he could see what his friends were doing and get familiar with the classroom. But we allowed him to take as many breaks as he needed out of the classroom just to get comfortable, and it kept him regulated. We did see some of those big behaviors, punching. A lot of times he'd tell us he was going to hit us first, so that was helpful, so we could be prepared. But a lot of punching, wanting to be in small spaces, different rooms, and wanting to just be away from any noise, any friends, anything. And then, so after working on a lot of these things, pulling the wagon in, we have a really nice setup where we have observation rooms for our classrooms too. So a room you can go into, a small room, and you can see what's going on in the classroom, and you can turn on a microphone and hear it. So that was kind of his safe space, because he could see what his friends were doing. They couldn't see him. They didn't know he was in there. He could hear them. So that was really nice for him too. So after a lot of this time of slowly pulling him into the room or letting him watch through the window, he eventually started wanting to go into the classroom. And slowly began playing with his friends. Kaitlyn mentioned he was a 6-year-old, very big guy. A lot of the peers in his classroom at the time 3 or 4 and very small. So could have been a scary situation because he was so aggressive, but really he kept his aggression only towards adults. And with these kids, he took on a big brother role. It was really, really sweet. He loved them. He shared with them. He was teaching them. He kind of turned into a teacher helper. He liked to help them get their snacks ready, and he would share. He would bring things from home and try to share them with his friends. And then he also got to the point where he was asking for breaks when he needed it. So instead of just running out of the room, he'd say he needed space. He also started getting to the point where he was asking for hugs, which is something that he probably did not get a lot of as a kid, and kind of what Kaitlyn was saying earlier about rocking with him. Like, he just needed some of that comfort, but didn't really know at first that that's what he needed. He also started to really like art. Oh no, I did it again. Push the buttons. Started to really like art, really liked coloring, and started kind of, one of our therapists is an art therapist. So he started doing some art therapy stuff with her and was drawing pictures of himself and his family. And that was really cool too. And definitely seemed to have less anxiety, felt safer, and let peers share space with him, which was something he really struggled with before. Throughout the time too, at first, Mom was very, seemed kind of closed off from us, from all of her past experiences. I know at one point she had told us that this 6-year-old had been through 5 or 6 special ed teachers within a year and a half. So I think she was just thinking of us as, oh, you're just going to be another teacher in his life. He's had so many. So at first it took her a really long time to open up and trust us. But then towards the end, she was very chatty and wanted to know about his progress, and she would share about how he was doing at home and saying he was doing really well there too. So she got more open throughout the time as well. She also said he was very excited to come to St. David's, and on those days that he knew he was coming here in the afternoon, he actually got on the bus and didn't put up a fight because he knew he got to come to his safe place after that. And on his last day too, so he left to go to school full time. He did not give him a specifics. This is your 60 days, you're done. He left to go to school because he successfully made a lot of progress in our program, which was really exciting. He was kind of sad to go, but we still, every once in a while, his mom will send us updates, so that's really exciting. And then Mom, I think one of the biggest changes that people noticed in Mom was that first day she came in for the tour, Kaitlyn said she was just frozen, just sitting on a couch, just like she could not take in anything that was happening. It's just so overwhelmed, and and kind of appeared scared of him, like doesn't know what to do. On his last day, she came to his little graduation party and was walking with him, smiling, laughing, having a good time. And you could tell like that she, her relationship with her kiddo had gotten so much better during the time. And that she was, not as scared of him anymore, or not as scared of what he could potentially, do when he gets dysregulated. I talked to some staff on Friday to get some of the people who worked with him the most, and got a few fun stories about him too. One of the staff who worked with him the most said that the compassion and empathy that came out as he became comfortable with us was incredible, and he was so sweet to his friends. So took on the big brother role and shared snacks with a friend. And every time he would see another kid crying, typically they were about 3 years old, he would say like, I don't want to see him cry. But he's so cute when he cries, but I don't want to see him cry. But look how cute he is. So he would always talk about how cute his friends were. Also, he called St. David's Harman Center his big city school. He lived in the suburbs, but was so excited to come here and thought it was the coolest thing ever. Bragged to his siblings, bragged to his friends, his family, everybody that he got to come to a big city school because he was so excited to come to Minneapolis for school. Also, one day he found a radio, which I think kids these days probably don't really know what that is. So he was so excited that he found a radio and that he could just turn the dial and it would find different radio stations. I think that was a new thing for him. And he had found a radio station and had a dance party. And this is a kid who used to be only like with one adult, no kids around. He went around our whole building, invited every adult and every kiddo he could find to this dance party. And he let them come to share the room with him, was showing them all of his dance moves. So coming from a kiddo who wanted nothing to do with friends, and now he's inviting people he doesn't even know, strangers, like feeling safe enough in the environment to invite these people was really cool. Another time I was playing with him in the hallway and he was racing on a scooter and he made me run next to him while he was on the scooter. And then finally he found there was another kiddo in the hallway, and he started playing with this kiddo. And then I found out after the fact that the kiddo he started playing with was diagnosed with selective mutism. I would have never known because this kiddo was so friendly to the kiddo with selective mutism, he was talking to him. So his therapist afterwards told me that she had really never seen this kiddo talk before, especially to a peer. And now here, this kiddo is being so friendly to him, talking about, how old are you? When's your birthday? What's your name? Showing him how to use the scooter. And they're interacting as if they're just two kiddos. I would have had no idea, but he was just so friendly and wanted to teach everybody everything. And was just such a nice kiddo. And then my last story is kind of what, so Kaitlyn was talking about, kind of that first time rocking him facing away, having kind of a hard time with that. But on one of his last couple weeks, he knew he was going to be leaving one of his favorite staff, and he saw her. She was sitting at her desk working. He saw her. He went up to her and he said, I'm going to cry. I'm sad you're leaving. And he crawled in her lap, facing her, and he hugged her for 5 minutes by choice. So really shows that progression of the safety and just kind of getting that nurturing that he wants and feeling comfortable too. So he wanted to hug her and then talked a lot just about how he was feeling, and they talked about their feelings and how it's sad to leave, but so that was just another big moment. So yes, he is in school right now, and I think and hope he's doing very well. But so that's kind of his story of going through a lot of our different programs here, and his success story.
Think of that. High alert, not being willing to, not knowing how to engage in relationships in a way that felt safe and warm and comforting, to getting to that, to getting that kind of experience, being so worried about the exits in the building because you have to figure out how to get out, to feeling safe. That's a changed experience. So thank you for your work. So I'm going to bring it to a close. I think we're almost done here. I'm going to just share two quick things. St. David's Center's work is good and called upon. We are in a time of growth and change as an organization. The mental health needs are skyrocketing, severity of symptoms, disparity is a major concern. That has not gotten better through COVID. We have a long wait list, 1,700 kids and families on our wait list between our two sites. We're in a time of stagnant rates for mental health services. Of our $2.5 million that we fundraise for St. David's Center's work, $1.5 million just goes to help cover the Medicaid rates. It costs us 30% more than the rates cover to provide those services. We're out of space here. We're out of space at our Minnetonka location. And we need to really make sure as a community we're investing in the mental health workforce. We need brilliant clinicians like Kaitlyn and Hannah. And so we're on a path to make sure that we have a good internship program, that we're nurturing the next generation, that we're calling people into the field, and that we're thinking about how we can grow. So you're going to hear more about that in the coming weeks and months. We have a vision, a strategic plan that's guiding us to growth in the next few years, and through innovation and partnership and expansion. What I'd say to you for this next year is that we're going to expand to a site in St. Cloud. St. Cloud United Way has invited St. David's Center to come into their community to start a center like our centers here. And we're looking at a metro expansion as well, just to make sure that we can address the needs as effectively as possible. And we're going to innovate to meet emerging needs, create culturally responsive models of care like our East African-focused Autism Day treatment here at the Harman Center. And we're going to advocate. So we're going to be advocating really hard at the legislature this session to make sure that our state is investing in mental health services so that more providers don't go out of business and so that we can provide the kind of work that you've heard described here today. So we'll invite you as a community to help us advocate. We'll ask you at various points this legislative season to help tell the story of mental health needs in our community, specifically for children and families, and invest in the kind of work that is being provided here at Westminster in our Harman Center and at our Minnetonka location. So I'm going to bring it to a close. I don't know, Kathleen, if there's questions we want to, or if you have anything you want to say as we bring it to a close. Question? Let's give you the mic.
I was just curious, a couple times you mentioned the mother would call that I need help, I'm at wit's end. What's the normal way that they learn about you? I mean, you know your kid's in trouble and you're at home. I mean, I'm just curious what people find you.
That's a great question and a really common question from people in the community. It's a ton of ways. Hennepin County Child Protection Services will make referrals. Other child care centers, often kids are being kicked out of other child care centers due to big behaviors. So we get a ton of referrals from other providers in the community, from pediatricians, from school settings. We develop relationships with key referral sources, Hennepin County, Minneapolis Public Schools, for here. Any other ways that you'd say? It's just a ton. Yeah, and our reputation known in the community as an agency that says yes to kids and families. Anything else you'd add to that, either of you?
Yes, a question from the online chat. What is the status of the relationship with the YWCA?
So the YWCA, we started working with them. We wanted to right away, and we were just kind of getting ourselves going, and then COVID hit, and that slowed everything down. So we started working with them in the last year to share referrals, and started thinking about potential for providing some services on site there, or them bringing kids over here. So right now, our relationship is that we have a speech therapist that goes over, that they're making referrals for speech therapy. We're in the process of a deeper conversation with them right now about what that can look like long term. So I'm hopeful that I'll be able to share more with you about that in the coming few weeks.